The beast and his army shall rise from the pit to make war with Doctor Who Review. Hi everybody, how you doing? I'm Chris.
I'm not Chris.
And we're talking about Series 2 where we're up to the modern series.
We're going to talk about something different this week. We are going to talk about Doctor Who.
Yeah. If Lucy seems distracted, I put a pith helmet on just before we started recording.
Put my pith helmet on? That was my birthday present.
So what he's saying is I'm taking the pith.
I'm going to tally how many times you tell that joke.
How many times have I told
We're
that
getting
joke?
onto the second side of an A4 page here.
For those who are confused about the visuals, why can't we see you? This is a podcast, but we have a visual up just for a laugh in it. So think of it as like that fireside setting or aquarium option on your skybox, albeit with more ood. How very ood. We are, as of the time of this going up online, we're filming this in January, but this will be going up in like May, June time. We are 3 years into our Doctor Who marathon from start to present. And here we are with the third section of episodes from Series 2. Some might say the best and worst of Series 2 of the modern era. I have thoughts.
It was the best of times.
It was the blurst of times.
Times 2.
Simpsons reference, ladies and gentlemen. Enjoy. The Idiot's Lantern!
The Idiot's Lantern. I always think that The Idiot's Lantern is the one with Gwyneth. Always.
That's the Unquiet Dead.
I know it is, but because they use lanterns, in my head I'm like, they use lanterns, so it must be The Idiot's Lantern.
Also, there's a nice sort of similarity to the titles, I guess, so they flow the same way out the mouth. The Unquiet Dead, The Idiot's Lantern.
Yeah, that sounds like...
Mark Gatiss sort of does that with a lot of it. The Empress of Mars, The Crimson Horror.
It's nice to say, it rolls off the tongue.
Yeah. What happens, speed of rolling off the tongue, what happens in this episode, lady?
Well, they're in the fiddies, and it's the Queen's coronation, and it's a big deal because it's being televised for the first time.
It's
yeah.
her coronation.
Well, it's the first time she's being coronated, and it's the first time she's being recorded. So, TVs are popping up here, there, and everywhere, and in this specific place in London...
Near Alexandra Palace, funnily enough.
TVs are being sold at a super cheap price, so everybody seems to have one.
It's all coming from one shop, though. Can you remember the name?
Mr. TV McGee.
No! I wish, are you kidding me? Sell them cheap, that's me, Mr. TV McGee.
I love it.
Magpie Electronics.
That's so boring. That's way boring.
Making its one actual appearance in the show, but it's a brand we will continue to see used in set design and decoration going forward. Yeah, it gets used a lot. A heck of a lot.
Really?
11th Doctor's TARDIS, the TV attachment in there. You see it at one point. It's got Magpie Electronics stuff on the back of it.
Now here we go.
The amp, the upcoming Christmas special, the amps at Donna's wedding, Magpie Electronics.
Did the Doctor steal it, or did he buy it?
I think it's more just a... Remember that?
Stole it.
I think it's more just a...
I reckon he stole it.
Okay.
He is a thief in the night.
You're stealing off me, Mr. TV McGee? So why is Magpie selling TVs at a super cheap rate? It's almost like somebody's making him put more TVs into that section of London. Why?
He's being controlled by an alien presence who has infiltrated television through the signal.
Or at least a television in his shop and is now spreading.
Or you could say she's infiltrated through the wire.
Why would you say that?
Because her name's The Wire.
The Wire.
It's taken the form of a lady on the telly.
Yeah, whom is it? Because she's bloody brilliant.
Maureen
Lipman. Maureen Lipman.
Feed me.
Kind
of makes me feel a bit uncomfortable.
Oh, it's horrid. It's horrid because essentially this thing consumes life forms. We find out later on in the story that it was executed on its home world, but it escaped in like a basically as a wavelength. It had a way to cheat death. And what it's doing now is it needs as many faces glued to the screen as possible so that it can essentially zap the life force from it. It seems to feed off of life So they talk about it. It's like to do with like electricity in the brain and everything. That's the whole point. It needs a transmitter, so that's a portable version's built, and it's going to go to Alexandra Palace and zap everybody's energy during the coronation while they're all glued to the TV. But it's like the bodies, the husks of the people whose life force it drains are still alive, kind of. They're just stood there, not moving, except for their hands twitching really creepily.
Why does it do that? Why does it make
and they have
sound?
no face.
Why does it make that sound?
Well, the hands, like
It's
the
like
sort of creaking noise. I think it's just an aesthetic choice, isn't it? It's very auton, which is, I think, a bit of a mistake, because it sounds like an auton plastic
Yeah, it does
sound.
a little bit.
But the visual effect is great, and it's interesting to see on the behind the scenes and stuff, like the outtakes and whatnot, that all the faceless people, the people whose faces are removed by the wire, it's all digital. Like, every single bit of it, you kind of assume that maybe there'd be like a basic prosthetic or something that everyone would wear, like a mask that they just put on for the shots. But no, it's all digital, which of course leads to some really funny David and Billy making each other laugh shots because they just can't keep serious. But it looks good. It looks horrifying.
It does.
And it's exemplified beautifully by the Connolly family, who are sort of our main focus on Earth for this story. Father Eddie, wife Rita, and mother to Tommy, and their grandma, Rita's mum, lives with them. And
what's Tommy short for? Thomas.
Thomas, yeah. And
I feel kind of stupid asking that now.
That's all right. It's a day. If it's never crossed your mind before, fair enough. So Grandma Connolly's one of the first victims in the street of this thing happening. The TV zaps them and removes your face. And they don't know what to do, and they're trying to keep her away. But people are being bundled away by men in black. This is, as he says, was it Churchill's England, not Stalin's Russia, or whatever it is he describes it as.
I don't know.
But that's a great, like, the plot's great. Like, people, shady police officers or government people showing up to take people away. Like, someone's clearly snitching on this thing that's happening to people. It's great.
It's scary.
So the Doctor gets very involved, going undercover at first with Rose into the Connolly household, which is one of my favourite scenes this series, actually.
So, can I just say, doesn't it say a lot for the English kind of persona at that time, very uptight and nope, nothing's wrong here.
Well, yeah. Well,
sorry, there's nobody here.
Eddie fought in the Second World War, so you assume that, like, you know, this is a good and decent man who, like, you know, came back from doing, you know, what was at the time the right thing to protect people back at home. But then you realise, no, it's all about maintaining image. That's the whole point. Without his image, without that image of him being like the veteran in the street who everybody loves and respects, what else has he got? So he, spoiler alert, is the one ratting out everybody to the police. Because he's like, and the way that he refers to, like, Grandma Connolly is like that thing.
Scary.
It's horrible, isn't it? It's really horrible. Because, like, the visual of the faceless people is really grim and such a simple visual, but really unnerving. And then, you know, it's Beauty and the Beast, isn't it? Well, Gaston's the beast, really, and in this case, Eddie's the villain.
He's
really.
no beast, Gaston.
You are!
Anyway,
Eddie's the villain, aside from, of course, our actual threat.
Yeah.
But, like, yeah, and I think by the end of it, it's quite nice that Tommy defies him, Rita defies him, and then at the end of it, as he's leaving, Rose is like, no, seriously, like,
he's your dad.
Check on him. Like, yeah, he's a dick, and I understand why you want him gone. But just make sure he's okay. Keep the relationship going in some way.
Keep it in the family.
And it's because, you know, she's had loss. Even recently, like, she's seen a family structure she could have had if she were the pet dog. And
she's lost
you know,
Mickey and
yeah, she's lost Mickey. She's had to say goodbye to her dad twice. She's seen her mum be killed in an alternate bloody universe. It's like, you know, it's horrible. So she understands the importance of family, a thread which carries on through the next couple of stories. The Doctor and Rose going undercover is one of my favourite scenes during this era. Pretending to be there on behalf of the Queen, making sure everybody's ready for the big day. Just the way, like, Rose is using her knowledge of Basically sailors and Cliff Richard and things like that, all because of stuff her mum subjected her to.
Jackie went out with a sailor.
Oh, I bet she did. Like, all that is brilliant. And just the shit-eating grins they've both got while they're doing it as well. But then the way the Doctor is just like, no. He just takes charge when he realises that Rita and Tommy are essentially being oppressed by their dad. That stuff's great. Can we talk about their wardrobe?
I love it.
They look freaking fabulous. The Doctor's not dressed any differently, for anyone wondering. He just coiffed his hair. He's done his hair in the style that's period appropriate because they were meant to be rocking up to like Vegas to watch Elvis, and instead they ended up in London, but during the coronation. So yeah, sticking around.
To be fair, I would stick around too to see something like that.
Yeah,
because it's monumental in our society. No, in our country. It's a big moment in history because. Right?
I'm just checking the moment in.
Because everybody loved the royals, but this was like the first time that you would get in up close and personal with them.
Yeah,
like you were actually as if you were there.
People were seeing them.
So
just hate seeing them.
And then she got married like 30 years later.
Shut up! That's a joke. That doesn't make any sense to anyone watching this. Long story short, I got my dates wrong. Go back to an earlier episode to find out more. So, Detective Inspector Bishop and Officer Crabtree, are a great addition in this. Because I love the idea that Detective Inspector Bishop is bungling these people away because of calls. And again, it's that image thing. It's because, like, they don't know what to do. So the better thing for the police to do is just...
brush it under the rug.
To which the Doctor's, like, challenges them on it, and Inspector Bishop's like, you're right. Like, I know this is the wrong thing to do, but
we've never encountered this before.
Yeah, we don't know where to begin. So the Doctor's arrival is the thing that turns the tables. I love the whole get your fingers fingers around your elbow, a hand around your elbow, make your fingers meet moment. In the background, Crabtree's just like very subtly doing it in the back of shot. That's the name of the what's his face, the enforcer.
I thought that was
Detective Inspector Bishop is the detective.
Oh, Magpie is the...
Magpie is the...
Sorry,
yeah.
I'm getting confused.
But also shout out to him, because that's a fantastic performance. We've seen him before in our marathon. Way back when, our first bonus video, the adaptations video, we watched the Cushing movies and Adventure in Space and Time. He's the... I can't remember the name now, but he's the producer who works with Verity and is actually really bloody lovely to her and helps her get everything set up. He's great in that. And he's wonderful in this. Like, you really do sort of... You feel bad for him. Like, this is not a fun situation to be in. His business is going to go to shit. He's screwed. Nothing's working. And then this alien's like, I'm going to make the business flourish. All you got to do is let me eat people. And he's like, I don't want to do that. So she eats him a tiny bit. She takes a bit of him. Because he keeps talking, doesn't he, about how she's in his head. It's like she's punishing him.
Yeah.
And then he gets... like, the scenes with him where Rose confronts him in the shop, and then the one where the Doctor and Inspector Bishop and Tommy confront him in the shop are both played so well, and I think it's mostly down to Magpie in the way he plays those scenes. But it's horrible because he doesn't get freed. He dies. The wire just kills him. It's horrible. It's great. I love it. And she's nasty. We've recently been watching WandaVision, and they do some great stuff with the aspect ratios changing, like to creates tension and whatnot. And in this, you get a small version of that when the wire goes to colour and
HD.
And it's like, well, that's weird. That's really freaking weird. I enjoy this one a lot.
I like this one.
I love a nice sort of by the numbers modern historical. By modern historical, I mean there has to be an alien involved, but at least it's not like completely overshadowing it all. Like the historical element and the period setting don't feel like they're just background. They feel like it's appropriate, and this story only works because of it being in this time period.
What do you think they told people? Like, why did this happen?
What happened?
Flu.
I was upstairs, and then I wasn't upstairs. I was in a cage in a warehouse.
I was in a cage!
Why did you not stop him from taking me?
Mum, why do you sound like that? Because I was in a cage!
We also have this story to thank for the greatest action figure, for my money, in the line. Followed very closely by Destroyed Cassandra, obviously. And that is the Grandma Connolly action figure who joins us here today. Thank you, Grandma Connolly.
Welcome to the table, Grandma Connolly.
I'm glad she's here because it means that with her and the Wire, we have an action figure who's appropriate for this review. Series 2 and Series 5 are like the only ones we're going to have where we have an action figure for nearly every story. We used to have a Hoix, which I was going to have for Love and Monsters, and I went looking for it yesterday and I couldn't find it. Then I remembered the year we were getting married, when we first started these reviews, 2018, I was selling off a lot of things. Mm-hmm. So I must have sold the Hoix as well. So, sorry, fella. You were a fun fella. But you weren't as fun as the Idiot's Lantern.
Idiot's Lantern.
Roger Wheat! Up next, we have a two-parter.
Idiot Lantern.
That doesn't make sense to anyone.
No,
not even me, and I kind of get what you're going for.
No.
3 two-parters this series. Age of Steel. The Rise and Cybermen Age of Steel was a lot of fun.
Oh, 3? That's crazy, isn't it?
That's the formula for every series up until Series 6.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, colour me around.
What?
Call back to the last video.
No! Right, so... as much as I enjoy Rise of the Cybermen Age of Steel, especially on this revisit, I really dug it, if you remember from the last video! And as much as I enjoy the upcoming Army of Ghosts and Doomsday, this is one of the best two-parters in Doctor Who.
Yeah, 100%.
This Impossible Planet and the Satan Pit. The TARDIS arrives on a base, an installation on an asteroid that is floating outside of a black hole, but not being sucked in. Yeah, it should be. It's a planetoid that should be sucked into the black hole, and it ain't. Hence, the Impossible Planet. There's a research team there who are, if you could you use your doohickey to pull up the...
They're drilling, aren't they?
Pull up the cast. Yeah, they're drilling because they believe that whatever is keeping this thing here is in the centre. And as the Doctor is quite inspired to find out, the reason why this Earth crew are here in the first place is simply because they don't understand why this is happening. So they've come to find out why. Mm-hmm. And he's like, but you could... Like, this could be something big or scary or deadly for you lot. And they're like, we need to know why. And he's like, brilliant. Like, I love it. I love that. Humans, like, this asteroid, this planet floating outside of a black hole. The black hole spat out a planet. 'Cause what did they call it? The bitter pill, wasn't it?
Something like that, yeah.
So this planet was spat out by the black hole and has just stayed here this entire time. And they're looking to find out why, 'cause it's there. Which is bloody brilliant.
And then the Doctor gets really, really fascinated with it because there's things written on the walls, isn't there?
Yeah, there's language written on the wall that he and Rose can't read, which means it's older than the TARDIS is able to translate.
And the TARDIS can't translate it. That is really... Having watched Doctor Who from the beginning, that really hits like, oh God, what can it be? Because
that's weird.
The TARDIS can translate anything.
Unless it is... Old.
Super old. Balls.
Yeah, old as balls. But not only that, so who are our crew? What's the name of our crew? Who have we got?
There we go. We've got Mr. Jefferson.
Yes, the security officer.
Yep. Zachary Crossplane.
Zach is the captain, was it fill-in captain? He's standing in because the previous one perished at some point, yeah.
Ida Scott.
Ida Scott, yes, she's brilliant. Ida's great. Who else we got?
Toby Zed. Sorry.
Who's hiding amongst the toys displayed here right now, folks. You've probably spotted him. Yes, the light's on. Oh. Lucy just mind, is the light on? And I'll have to fill that blank air to describe why they went quiet.
I just want to say, I always thought, Christopher's had this displayed for ages and ages, just purely because it's such an impressive piece. And it's, an amazing episode. I always thought the light was in there.
Nope.
I really did.
In case anyone's got one of these, just buy one of those little spotlight things from Asda and whatnot and give it a little clicky click. And then put your Toby in there, it can be all uplit, nice and creepy.
You've pretty much always had Toby in there, haven't you?
Since we've been in this house, yeah.
Or you had the Doctor in, I think. Once.
I've had him near it, and I've had like the Paul McGann Night of the Doctor
climbing on it.
Climbing on it at one point. Yeah.
I know, and then the other day, Christopher opened it, and I saw that push light in it. I was like, everything's a lie. I know nothing. I was very impressed. Anyway, that was a long story. Danny Bartok.
Yep, Danny's the one
Master
who
of the Ood.
looks so master of the Ood. Like, he's the one who's looking out for the Ood and their wavelengths, keeping them happy. Who else? What's her name? I always forget her name because I always want to call her Suki, but it's not Suki. Scooty.
I thought it was Suki.
It's because Suki's last series, Suki was the lady who was undercover on Satellite 5.
Maybe the C is silent, Suki. Because I do not remember them calling
No, Scooty.
Scooty?
I don't know. Can't be right.
Genuinely called Scooty?
Point is, you've got a very defined crew, each with their own roles, and also 2 security officers who aren't named but are there to die.
Yeah. They're not even on it.
And that's weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
So
I just think that's rude, really.
it's a bit rude, really. They died for us, but rude like the Ood, because the Ood are also there. The Ood are as they're described in this, basic slave race.
Yeah, which is really hard.
Which is the idea is that they exist to have a directive. They exist to be given a purpose. They're not being forced. They've not been enslaved. They need to do things, and that's what keeps them content. So the Earth, or at least part of the Earth, and we'll learn more about this in Series 4, have Ood as essentially personal butlers. And this ship is manned by the Ood. They work in the mines, they work the cafeteria, they do basic tasks around the base. What's great about it is Rose in particular. The Doctor's seen some shit, so this doesn't faze him.
Yeah.
Rose challenges it a bit. She's like, "That's weird.
Rose
this is weird," and she's really lovely to them. She's so pleasant to them because you feel like she's thinking they're being neglected.
Mm.
But this does sort of show that the Ood are kind of a hive mind that do just exist. That they're happy just doing things for people.
Mm.
Like, that's what makes them content. They have these little spheres that translate to speech because obviously they don't have mouths. They've just got big blobs of tendrils. Their design is fantastic. They are instantly one of the most iconic aliens in the series, and that's down to the practical effects and the calming voice that they all have as well. Like, this very, very jovial, very pleasant voice, which gets to say some really creepy shit in this 2-parter.
Yeah, God.
And they also have very pretty eyes. They have very believable, nice eyes, which is played to great effect because it's purposely that nice and pleasant looking, so it can be shocking later on. The Ood operate below a basic 10 on the psychic wavelength monitor thing, and as long as they're at that level, they're okay. If they go a bit above that or 2 below that, then Danny has to keep an eye on them to make sure they're not unwell or in distress in some way.
Mm-hmm.
And they just sort of, when they're not working, they just sort of sit in this kind of mess area, don't they, basically? It's like a changing room without the lockers.
Literally just sat there.
They just sit there, and they're happy to do that. Until something starts talking through them. Because, first peril, we lose the damn TARDIS.
Yes.
Part of the...
Because where they are is completely unstable.
Sorry, we had a bit of a recording issue there.
Well, that was rude.
I have to keep an eye on the camera for this. The TARDIS gets jettisoned when part of the base is detached and falls into the chasm, making it a 1 in a million chance of them ever finding it again.
Yeah.
So this is where the family thread comes in, because the Rose and Doctor, sounds like a pub,
Just found a rose in the...
just hanging out, just chilling out. They realise that they're going to have to possibly settle down when they get taken back to Earth, or the Earth colony, or wherever these guys are from. And that horrifies the Doctor at first. The idea of a normal life scares him.
Mm.
But he seems comforted by the notion that if he has to settle down, get a job, get a mortgage, at least it's with Rose. Well, that's the thing, isn't it? She's sort of like, I mean, we could, move in together. And it's like, oh, bless you. Because she's 20, maybe 21 at this point. And it's just sort of super sweet and awkward. And
they're both awkward about it, which is adorable.
But they don't have to be awkward for much longer, because that's when the plot kicks in. Who's the villain, Boo?
Well, that's a hard question to answer.
Well, there's only one villain, let's be honest. But...
Yeah, because Toby, I don't want to spoil it yet, because Toby is the archaeological member of the team, so he's trying to...
The linguist of the group.
Yeah.
Linguist.
He's trying to figure out what these runes mean.
Mm.
And whilst he's trying to figure them out, it turns out they're like figuring him out, and he gets possessed essentially by whatever is in the core of this planet asteroid thing that they're on. Can I just say it out?
Yeah, say it. I mean, it's in the title for the second episode.
Well, it's Satan.
Lucifer.
It's very demonic, and it's slowly taking over Toby's mind and making him go a bit mad, to the point where his team members and his colleagues start to suffer for it.
I mean, Scooty ends up being pulled out.
This
of the
is one
airlock,
of the.
and it's haunting.
We were discussing
it
at the time. It was one of the most disturbing deaths, I think, because how is he outside? How is he?
He's just on the planet's surface.
He is walking on the planet because she's saying to the computer like, "Oh, who's taken a suit out?"
It's like no suits
have been taken out.
But you said someone's outside the complex, and then she sees him, and she's sort of amazed and horrified, and then he kind of beckons to her, and it's like she's sort of entranced a little bit, and then she's like, "No, this is wrong." And I was thinking about that afterwards. I was like, is he kind of like, is it like mind control? Is he sort of saying like, come outside? And then I realised, yeah, what's the devil? Temptation.
Yeah.
That's kind of the point. It's this whole thing of she's seeing it and being like, that's not possible.
Oh,
maybe it is. Maybe I should go out.
I can try it. No.
So she says no, which is when he starts to crack the glass with his mind.
And keep in mind, out there is literally just space and a void and a black
things
hole.
Being sucked into a black hole.
Yeah. So the fact that he's able to do that, and he comes back in the ship and he's obviously completely unharmed.
Yeah.
It's like, what?
No one knows he's been out.
Yeah.
As they see Scooty's corpse floating above the observation dome.
Yeah, they couldn't find her anywhere, and it's
Lifelong says
really
she's in like dome whatever, and they go there and
they're like, she's not here, and they look up because they can open. It's like a skylight to space, and they see her floating away. And I remember watching behind the scenes of that because they did it in water, didn't they?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my god, that looks so impressive. It looks really scary and quite disturbing.
Because she's just dead.
She's just dead, floating away into a black hole. That's horrific, and nothing will ever stop her.
Yeah.
She'll just continue to float away forever.
And then whatever happens in the black hole happens in the black hole, and off she pops.
Off she pops! You're so cute.
She's our first on-screen death.
Because
obviously we had the previous captain.
Yeah.
Who passed away. And Zach's doing an amazing job. I love how... Because this cast is phenomenal. They're a cast of people who you'll go, oh, hang on, I've seen them in that. Oh, they're from there. Oh, yeah. It's just one of that lot. They're all wonderful and they're all brilliant, and they were in a lot of UK TV in the late 90s to sort of like 2000s, 2010s. Like they all float around. But my favourite is Zach, the captain, standing captain. Because halfway through, you just suddenly realised where you recognised him from.
Yes.
Which is the movie The Mummy Returns.
Yeah.
Playing, what's the character called?
I can't remember.
Because he's Rick O'Connell's go-to in the second act of that movie.
The first one.
He's Rick O'Connell's go-to in the second act of that movie. He's the guy with the piloted Zephyr.
Yeah.
Who they recruit to help fly them in to try and save their son in The Mummy Returns. Izzy. And he's great in that movie. What's the actor called? You got the name? The actor's name is
Sean Parks.
Sean Parks. He's great in this, and he's great in The Mummy Returns.
He's one of the best things about The Mummy Returns.
He's reluctant to help Rick because every time he helps Rick, he gets shot.
Shot in the arse.
Shot in the arse. That's it. Because he thought he lost an eye, but no, he just wears the eye patch because the ladies like it. It makes him look interesting and mysterious. So you just kept yelling out lines from The Mummy Returns for at least 5 minutes.
I did. I apologise.
What's the line about Tarzan?
Oh, the airship that kind of thing that they're in.
Yeah.
Gets taken down essentially in the jungle, and Rick's just like, yeah, we can just fill it up again, and he's like, what? No, it runs on gas. When are we gonna get gas? Bananas, Tarzan's ass. And as a kid, watching that in the cinema. I've discussed this before, but I was too young to see it in the cinema, but they snuck me in because I was a tall child. And I absolutely peed myself laughing at that bit.
So, did that distract you at all during the story when he's being all serious?
When I realised, because I did that thing where I was looking at him and I was like, what are you from? I recognise you.
What are you from?
Who are you? And it was really bothering me. And then it just clicked in my head. And I was like... I was
very happy.
I was very proud of myself.
Because you're terrible at recognising people and stuff.
No, I'm good with people's faces, but I'm really bad with people's names.
And as a result, where else they're from.
Yeah. And I was also really happy because I was remembering the Mummy too. And also watching an excellent episode of Doctor Who.
Yes. So...
Wow, that was really long.
Toby's not the only one possessed. Who else gets possessed?
The Ood.
Yep, their entire psychic wavelength is taken over by this intelligence. It turns their eyes red, turns their communicators into basically like electric balls of death.
It's scary because when they're sat in their rows when they're sleeping or whatever, they're connected to a piece of machinery, aren't they, that tells them like what frequency they're on.
Yeah.
So they can tell when they're sleeping or when they're talking to each other, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah,
dogs just roll their
because they all communicate psychically to each other.
Yeah, and it keeps going up and up and up and up and up, and it's like they are essentially screaming.
Yeah, the way it's worded is like they're calling out.
But there's no sound.
Like they're either calling out for help or they're calling out in pain, but you can't hear that because they're not using their communicators.
Exactly. And so the fact that they are screaming and you can't hear anything, I think that's really eerie.
It's horrifying. And then what they end up being used for is horrifying because they're effectively the lead that we are legion. We are the legions of the beast. Yeah. Because this thing reveals itself to be Satan.
Yeah. Hands down, full on Satan.
And it reveals everyone's secrets. Like, without going all in, it basically, like, hints at them that it knows them.
It's tormenting people.
Yeah, like, really playing on stuff. And as the Doctor points out, like, don't listen. Like, that's the whole point. If you focus on that, you believe that this is what it is. And maybe it is what it is. But that's not going to keep you alive, is it? So ignore it. Ignore what it's saying. This is what it wants. It also seems to be possessing Toby sporadically to make a point. Although it's kind of clear from certain signs that the only times that Toby is actually Toby in this is probably the first 10-15 minutes of the first episode. And that very brief bit where he's sat in the gantry with them as they're panicking, wondering what they're going to do.
Yeah.
The rest of the time, it isn't Toby. It's the Beast, who is voiced in voiceover and mixed with the Ood's audio by Gabriel Wolfe, returning to Doctor Who to play the voice of Satan, effectively, because the last time we saw him was back in the Pyramids of Mars as the voice of Sutekh, who is effectively the devil of the Egyptian mythology, of the Osirians and all the stuff they set up in that. Because as the Doctor points out in this might not be the devil, but maybe it's the thing that gave everyone the idea. Like, it's older than time. And it's been, as we find out, it's been imprisoned on this planet. This planet which even the black hole spat out. I was like, nope, not taking that. But it's too late. The planet is going to break up at some point, and it's going to be led into the black hole. The only thing holding it in place is this prison for Satan, or whatever became Satan, or whatever every society or planet came up with an idea of a devil, a guardian of hell, an underworld king, an evil spirit. Like, this is where it all came from, it's where it stems from. So Sutekh may even be an offshoot of this. Like, not the same creature per se, but, like, same sort of thing. Which is great, because it doesn't bring that up at all in the story. It just leads you to go, hang on, that's the voice of the scary bloke from the pyramid one.
The guy with the long face.
Yeah, the one with the mummies with the big tits. So,
wow,
all those treats.
Big chests, you could have said.
Because the Doctor and Ida go down in the lift to the big, where the drill has reached its finish, and there's a massive chasm, and ancient society, these brilliant sculptures, statues that are all part of the CGI sets that make up this big cavern, and a seal, which, when opened, we go from part 1 to part 2, the Doctor and Ida have to toy with the idea of whether or not they go down. Tennant's dialogue in this, part 1 and part 2, who's the writer for this? Is it Matt Jones? Is that the name of the writer?
Let's have a wee look.
In Wikipedia, it's usually
Yeah, Matt Jones.
Matt Jones. Amazing script for this. And everyone does it justice, but like Tennant, especially in the bit in part 2 where he's talking about like it could only be another 30 feet after they've run out of cord, and I was like, I'm bringing you back up, and he's like, no, come on, like this might be the only shot we've got, and who knows. But it's his dialogue in part 1 before the end when the hatch is open, and it's that whole thing of like, we don't know what's down there, we can't reach a light, we can't get a signal. There's that voice in the back of your head that says, go on, do it, jump. And it's so well done. It's so, you were saying at the time, like you've had those moments. And I think everyone has had at least one moment in their life where they've, not because they're like, I'm going to jump off of this thing to hurt myself. That's not the thought process. It's, oh my God, look at that gap. Or, oh my God, look at that, that distance between these two things.
Curiosity.
Or, oh, look at that pool.
Could I make it?
Yeah, like it's just a little voice in the back of your head.
Yeah.
And that kind of ties into the notion of what the devil is and what it means, and it's a little voice in the back of your head. Or in this case, it's the voice behind Toby's head, or it's the voice coming from the Ood's head, or it gets into everyone's head by telling them these secrets or illuminating sort of things that make them think that this has been with them all along. It's so well done. I think it's great. And then when the Doctor finally finds this thing, we realise that it is indeed a creature. It's a gigantic beast of a thing with a skull for a face and flaming eyes and giant goat horns coming out of its head, and it is chained up. And that's the point. It's stuck here. But it's found a way to escape, sort of. And that's the point. Because of this expedition, the mind of this creature has escaped. That mind, of course, now being, at the very least, with Toby.
Yeah.
And manipulating the Ood. Which leads to the vent sequences, which are brilliant.
Scary.
It's scary. And Mr. Jefferson, like, taking the initiative, like when they have to close the doors, like Zach's got to close the doors periodically to get them stuck into different sections and vent the oxygen.
The oxygen, yeah.
And he basically stays behind to defend everyone and save them from the Ood. And then gets stuck there and then requests politely that the oxygen be taken out quicker.
To die on his own terms.
Yeah, because as the Ood with the electrified thingies are approaching, he's like, there's one of two ways I'm going to go here, and I wish to choose my own terms. And it's like, oh my God. So we get yet another death of the crew, after, of course, the electrified security members who barely get mentioned. But that's interesting. Like even though we had horror movie throwaway victims of the two security team members, Scooty and Mr. Jefferson, isn't it?
Yeah.
They both get felled in the story, as does by the end Toby, because when Toby, Danny, Zach and Rose, who's refusing to leave the Doctor behind, manage to get off the planet and hopefully get away before the black hole pulls everything in.
Yeah.
That's when Toby kind of makes his play and reveals who he is.
Bitches!
At the same time, but also mostly because it's panicking because the Doctor's piecing together what's going on, and the Doctor basically figures out that no matter what, the beast, if the body dies and goes into the black hole, the mind still lives. Both of them have to die to stop this from happening, or at the very least, both of them have to remain in prison to stop this from happening.
They've essentially got to stay together.
Yeah.
To be controlled.
Yeah. They can be, if they separate, they can spread and live on. And even if the body's trapped here, the mind will work its terrible vengeance and whatnot.
Terrible ways.
So that's when the Doctor relies essentially on Rose, like, I believe in one thing, I believe in her, and all that gubbins. And smashes the whatsits, and the devil goes all wibbly, and Toby starts freaking out, and Rose ejects him through because they established earlier on, don't they, that like you can smash through stuff, but there's an extra force field that will come up. There's like a backup for the glass and stuff. So like the moment that goes on, woof, Toby smashes out into space. So Toby dies, And the Doctor manages to grab Ida on the way out because he bumps into the TARDIS at the bottom of the catacombs.
Of course he does. When he gets to the bottom, he's like, "Way, there she is, there she is."
I mean, TARDIS!
TARDIS.
And he collects Ida, and...
I thought that Ida died.
Ida died. He collects Ida on his way up.
And so I was genuinely really happy when
because he offers a trade, doesn't he? I've got Ida Scott with me. She's all right, bit unconscious, a bit bruised, but she'll be okay.
She's a bit unconscious.
She's a bit nearly dead.
She's a bit flippy floppy.
So he offers a trade with Rose, and they head off, not really knowing how they're going to report it.
But they've got to log the deaths.
Well, they don't have to, but I love the fact that they take that. The last we see of them is Zachary logging Toby's death with honours, because Toby didn't choose for this to happen. And then because the Ood couldn't be saved, because then I'll be free to control the beast, but they'll be in the black hole. He logs all their deaths with honours as well, one by one. It's like, what a lovely, grim, but what a lovely note to end on, that he's not just accepting their deaths as, oh, well, the Ood died.
He recognises them all.
So that's wonderful. And then the beast said to Rose, and the child who will die in battle so very soon. And she says to the Doctor then, like, doesn't mean anything, does it? He's like, no, it's nonsense. It's like, don't worry about it.
Don't let him get in your head.
It's fine, innit?
Isn't it?
Yeah. Or is it?
Yeah.
So the Impossible Planet of the Satan Pit, fan?
Excellent.
So good.
Excellent.
The music as well, Murray Gold's score, like the string stuff, like the violin score in the background and everything, it's just so beautiful.
The music is haunting, it's heartbreaking, it's just excellent in every conceivable way.
Who directed it? Who's the director?
Directed by James Strong.
James Strong. So James Strong, Matt Jones, Murray Gold, the set team, like the base is incredible.
Amazing.
Very believable. The Ood, some of the finest aliens the show's ever produced. Such good two-parter.
They seem very sweet and wholesome, the Ood. And then when you see them scuttling through the vents, they're like,
their glowing red eyes and their Cthulhu spaghetti mouths just flopping around. We go from arguably one of the best stories of the modern era to probably the most... Well, I don't know if it still is the most panned story of the modern era, because we've had a lot of duds since this one, like ones that just arguably do not work as well. So I'd say this one's more divisive, really, because it does have its fans. It's nowhere near as derided as, say, your Hellbent or stories like that, but it also doesn't hold up for a lot of people. I'm a defender of this one. I don't think it's a 5 out of 5, but I don't think it's anywhere near the 1 out of 5 everyone says it is. Love and Monsters. What's the plot of Love and Monsters, not Chris?
There is definitely a plot.
Okay, but seriously, what's the plot of Love and Monsters? Who's our main character? Is it the Doctor? Is it Rose?
It's not. It's little Jimmy Elton.
Elton.
It's Elton.
Not that Elton.
Not Elton.
He makes a point of that with his snazzy video editing.
Not Elton John. Elton Pope.
Played by the fantastic Mark Warren, who's bloody good.
He and a group of his pals.
Well, you're skipping ahead here, really, aren't you?
Yeah, I am, really. He is aware of the Doctor and he wants to find out a little bit more about him.
Why? Why do you want to find out more about the Doctor?
Because he remembers him on a significant night.
When he was a kid, he remembers seeing him in his house.
Yeah, so he wants to know more about him, and he ends up finding a group that chat about him, and
they form the group, don't they? They all start getting together because
they share their research with each other about him,
because for starters, this is the first Doctor Light episode. Like, this becomes a bit of a tradition going forward for many reasons, mostly budget and your main stars not getting absolutely knackered in the 9-month run.
Yeah, you've got
if they get a few weeks where they can have like some time off and relax a little and focus on filming other bits and pieces.
Yeah.
Like if David Tennant and Billy Piper can focus on just doing ADR and a bit of promo for a couple of weeks, then good, because then they can take a breather.
Yeah.
And it also means you can showcase some other brilliant actors, like getting to kind of lead the story a little bit. And in this case, that is Mark Warren as Elton, who, we also get to see through his eyes the events of last series' alien invasion stories from the point of view of Johnny Normal, like a bloke living out and about in the street.
Somebody just out doing the shopping.
See the Autumn invasion, we see the Sycorax arriving on Earth, we see the crash of the spaceship into Big Ben. It's such a great idea because you don't get that.
You don't think about that side of things.
So it's so good to see it. And he's telling us all these stories, because this is the first of, I think, only 2, correct me if I'm wrong, folks, only 2 stories that are told to us through someone taping the narrative and regaling us with the story. Alongside Series 9's Sleep No More. There might be another, but I'm pretty sure it's just those 2. But, yeah, it's... They form a group.
They do.
Can you remember the name of everyone?
I can remember.
You're looking at the cast.
No, I can remember off the top of my head.
Okay, then look at me and don't look at your phone. And what's the name of all the characters? Put your phone down. What's the name of all the characters? Come on.
Camille.
Camille? Camille Kajuri, the actress who plays Jackie, is one of the characters in his group,
yes.
is she? Put your phone down. Put your phone down. Put your phone down.
There's Ursula.
Ursula Blake. Yeah. Mr.
Skinner.
Mr. Skinner, yes. Come on, you got this. Stop looking at your phone. Bliss. And...
Bridget.
Yes. She's looking at her phone. So... terrible. So they start... Bridget...
Camille.
Yeah, Camille Kajuri plays Jackie, you swine.
She's in it.
Yeah, but she's not a member of Linda, is she? My God. So Bridget travels down from up north every weekend and knows about the Doctor and stuff and is looking into it. And we learn different stuff about everyone as we go along, because we learn that Bridget's actually looking for a daughter who she's lost to drugs and a wayward life, and she thinks she's in London. It started with her coming down to London.
Yeah, it starts off as a group talking about the Doctor, and then it turns out just like a group of mates hanging out for a bit. And
Bliss is the artistic one, who's a bit off a rocker. I can't remember the name of the actress, but I used to absolutely adore her in 2 Pints of Lager and a Packet of Crisps.
Gotcha. Catherine Drysdale.
And you know, like so Bliss is that angle. Bridget's we learn about her daughter's stuff. We learn about Mr. Skinner and the fact that no one ever really calls him by his first name. That's kind of the point. In the end, they all call him Mr. Skinner, and we learn about his literary passions. And Ursula and Elton start to bond quite a bit. And this is one of the first points I'll bring up as to why this story is nowhere near as bad as everyone says it is. This story is about a lot of very lonely people finding common ground.
Yeah.
Which, when you break it down that way and you watch that first 20 minutes, is really endearing.
Yeah.
It's really sweet. Like, Mark Warren plays this like Elton is not somebody who... Like, he talks about how he loves football and he loves a drink. This isn't somebody you can imagine hanging out with his mates at the pub at the weekend watching the match.
Yeah.
And it's a very sincere performance. It's very awkward. It's very... Like, he's confident.
Yeah.
He's happy. He's creative. That's why he's filming his, video diary and stuff. Like, he loves music, but there's just certain signs about the kind of person that he is. He focuses very specifically on a couple of things. Mm-hmm. And it's done very respectfully.
Absolutely.
And that's one of the reasons I'll defend this story, because that is done so well.
It is.
By the 20-minute mark, as much as you're cringing to them singing ELO, and yeah, it's cringeworthy, but like it's cute cringeworthy.
It is because it's cute that he acknowledges that they just ended up hanging out.
Yeah.
Like they were. What was it?
London Investigation Detective Agency.
Is it Ursula Bakes?
Blake.
She
starts cooking
cooks,
stuff, and they're all. Oh, does it? I think Bridget brings the food actually. Bridget brings.
Oh
the
yeah,
food
sorry,
down.
Bridget. Yeah.
But they all start. They begin to bond over their mutual love of everything else.
Everything, yeah.
And like that's wonderful. And the story could end at the 20-minute mark, and it would have been a really perfect. What do you call it? Like story in the Doctor Who annual or something. Like there's always a 4 or 5 page story in the annuals or the end of year storybooks and stuff.
Yeah.
That would have been a lovely story. Just these people all kind of aware of him, and they're all learning about it a little bit. You know, people seeing these photos from the recent Christmas and stuff, and like they all seem to be aware of the 10th Doctor. That seems to be the Doctor they've all seen in some way, or at least spotted or been reading about. And if it was a short 5-page story in the annuals, it'd be bloody lovely, because it just ends with them all getting on instead and forming a friendship group. And the idea being that the Doctor has brought people together even when they're not in their life. And that's kind of sweet. Then things go tits up in more ways than one. Because this is where I see people not being as into it. I think the idea is great, but I think we should provide some context. So the episode begins with Elton finding the Doctor and Rose at like this power station, and them facing off against this creature, the Hoiks, rest in peace action figure I sold you 2 years ago. Sorry, dude. But I spent 2 hours the other day looking for it before I remembered. Aww. So sad at it. So. And the Hoiks is a great design. I love the fact it pops up a lot in like series 4 and 5 in just crowd scenes, because they're obviously very proud of it. And then it gets butchered and very obviously reused. No, you're thinking of the Weevils.
Oh.
Although, I don't know, maybe the Hoiks pops up somewhere in Torchwood. But it gets butchered and reused really obviously in the Rings of Akaten in a way that when the costume walked past camera, I was like, that's just the Hoiks. They've just gutted its mouth animatronics out and put like a Bane mask on it. What is this? Anyway. I'm very passionate about the Hoiks because it's a great design.
It is a great design, and it's such a shame that it was used
so briefly.
Yeah.
But then again, that's part of the fun, because they could have just reused another monster costume, and you'd be like, "Oh, cool, cameo!" But instead, it's monster unique to this episode.
Yeah, that's true.
Speaking of monsters unique to this episode, here's the context I wanted to offer. So, the antagonist of this episode was designed in a Blue Peter competition by. For those who don't know what that is, Blue Peter is a magazine show here in the UK. That's run for the better part of 60 years. It's about arts, crafts, adventurous stuff, documentaries. It's educational. It's fun. Sometimes there's competitions. They do charity drives. It is what it is.
Good wholesome TV.
And it's had lots of tie-ins with Doctor Who over the years. I mean, most notably, obviously, like Peter Purves, like one of the Blue Peter presenters before he was a Blue Peter presenter was Stephen during the first Doctor's era. And there's been plenty of tie-ins along the way, and usually competitions, things like that. One of which, in 2005, to coincide with the filming of Series 2 of the Modern Run, was for a kid to design a monster that would be in an episode. Cool idea. And the concept that the kid comes up with is pretty gruesome. It's pretty grotesque. It's a really fun illustration. Did
anybody check if that kid was okay? I
mean... You okay, dude? But like, it's a pretty interesting idea. The problem is, you are then married to that idea completely. As it's conceived. Now, of course, the production team and Russell T Davies, who wrote the script, could take liberties. And liberties are taken to make it fit. But it does mean that this whole episode from the 20-minute mark onwards has kind of a vibe of, oh, this is fun, isn't it? Oh, we're having a laugh. And I feel like... do you know what it feels like? Tell me if this is wrong.
Go on.
The first 20 minutes feels like a Dr. Light episode.
Yeah.
The last 25 minutes feels like a Children in Need special.
It does rather.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
there was a John Barrowman show called, I think it was One Night Only or something like that, where they, it was like a dreams come true kind of variety show thing meets like, people getting to do these cool challenges they always wanted to do and stuff like that. And on one of those, it was during the late Tennant era. One of the things was a guy designing an alien again, and this dude like designed an alien, and then the prize was essentially that alien. He'd shoot a short film with that alien. So it's on YouTube. I'll probably link it in the comments if I bloody remember. But it's Captain Jack Harkness on the TARDIS meets this alien that this guy is playing, and it's fun. It's a cool little idea.
The guy is playing it?
He's playing the alien in it. It's not a kid, it's like an adult and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's this sort of blue amorphous weird face thing, and it's in kind of like So it sort of looks like something out of Star Wars: The Clone Wars. Like it's almost dressed like a detective. It's got like a trilby and a trench coat, and then it's this blue face with these sort of swollen glands on its neck, and it's got a big mechanized arm. And it's just a bit of fun. The idea is they've gone to the sets and they've shot this encounter where this thing tries to invade the TARDIS, and Captain Jack's there and is going to fight it off. And then, comedy reveal, David Tennant, not the Doctor, comes on asking John why he's mucking around with the costumes and could you bugger off, I've got to do my lines now, get off my TARDIS. And the two of them, Jack and the guy sort of like, sorry David. And it's a fun little, you know what I mean, it's a fun sketch.
Yeah.
And it's also, I guess, the last time technically he filmed anything as Captain Jack, because he appeared after that in the end of time, but that was like the last time he sort of filmed a thing as Jack, for Doctor Who anyway, as Torchwood stuff afterwards.
Yeah.
But, so yeah, like things like that have happened. That one is very silly. Like it's just a cool little. It's one of those Saturday night variety show things of, oh, isn't it cool that they did this? What fun! And I think that's how everyone approached the second half of Love and Monsters, except for the cast who were in the first 20 minutes and Camille Kajuri. Because God love him, and we adore him in this house, but Peter Kay is not playing a scary sci-fi villain. No. Peter Kay is playing a comic relief cameo from a comedian playing an alien.
Yeah.
Peter Kay is in The Curse of Fatal Death. Do you know what I mean? 900 years in a sodding sewer! Like, it feels like we're in The Curse of Fatal Death again.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's a bad performance, but it's tonally different.
It doesn't fit properly.
Yeah, and the design of the Absorbaloff, the way it's shot, because that's what it is. The alien is the Absorbaloff. The way it's shot when it's revealed it feels wrong. It feels too. It's the chase scene. The chase scene is the bit that's like, what is happening? So, Linda. The group, London Investigation and Detective Agency, are great and they're wonderful and it's lovely to watch them, and then forming a group of mates is brilliant and I wouldn't change it for anything in the world. And then Victor Kennedy joins them. Seemingly a wealthy man with endless resources who is determined to track down the Doctor and has learned about their investigation. He's like, right, you're going to help me. And he brings the group back to what it was. Again, so far so good plot-wise. He gives them more equipment, they've got more files, he's brought some stuff from the Torchwood archives, and he even seems to be aware that the Doctor is several men, and this is the one we're looking for, and it's like, okay, interesting.
This is his companion.
Yeah, and that's the thing, it's about infiltration, so they focus in on Rose, and everyone's given the mission of finding Rose Tyler. Well, we don't know it's Rose Tyler yet, does it? It's like, find the girl, and yeah. Because they talk about accent. Because that's the thing, Elton, the scene at the beginning with the Hoyks and everything happens during this period when, like, there's been talk of the noise of the TARDIS and the investigating Elton's the one who sees them.
He finds them, yeah.
But also, after the first meeting of Victor Kennedy with the group, Bliss stays behind. And then Bliss stops showing up. Yeah. And then eventually Bridget stays behind. And Bridget stops showing up. And by this point, they're really rubbing salt in the wounds, because it's like, Bridget and Mr. Skinner have actually formed a romantic relationship, and the way that's done is so lovely. Like, a little kiss back there. Am I right in thinking that you're hoping there'll be more little kisses in the future? And it's just like, oh my god, this is actually kind of horrific, the idea that they're all clearly being killed off or kidnapped one by one.
Yeah.
Then we get to the bit of the story I think is absolutely unwaverably brilliant, which is the Jackie plot.
Yeah, no, I agree at this point.
Because it's away from the children in need comic relief vibe of everything else. And it's Elton meets Jackie. Because they're all very socially awkward, they've learnt this like 5-step plan to get to know somebody in a way that feels organic. But Jackie goes through all the steps for him because she's just chatty as anything.
That's very funnily done. That
she gets him to fix a washing machine, and then she's clearly taken a bit of a shine to him. Which again that's tragic, and they don't really zero in on it. So Elton's plan essentially is, Jackie thinks I'm attractive, I'm going to hang out with her a bit more. Yeah. and learn more about Rose and hopefully learn about the Doctor. And then eventually it results in her trying to full on jump his bones, effectively. And he goes with it. And God, that's so... Mark Warren plays that so brilliantly awkwardly.
Yeah.
It's about to get hotter! He comes out, he's just shirtless, and he's like trying to strike a sexy pose that just doesn't quite work. And that's when Jackie gets a phone call from Rose, and they don't make a thing of it, but she's lonely and she's projecting onto him. And
at least before she had Mickey.
Yeah, like I used to have a mate who did this, but he's gone now, and it's like, oh God. And she's just sort of looking for someone to spend time with, whether that be, romantic, sexual, just asking them for favours. She just needs someone around. And she sort of realises that she's using him for that reason. And she's like, I'm sorry, put your shirt back on. And that's when Elton's like, what the hell am I doing? This isn't right. So he goes out to get her a pizza. And they're going to watch the telly and have a pizza and have a laugh. And you and me, proper mates. And you feel like it's so wonderful, that scene. Camille Kajori plays it brilliantly. And Mark Warren plays it brilliantly. And then as he comes back, she's popped into his coat to put a tenner in his coat to pay for the pizza. Because she's like, I knew you wouldn't. You're too nice. You wouldn't accept it. So I thought I'd put it in. And she finds the photograph of Rose that they've all been given to track her down. And that scene, the way she talks about like being the one being left behind,
it's really sad.
It's hard, and that's what you become. You become hard, and it's like, oh God. And then she makes a point which we never would have seen her make last series. She says like, they've put me through this, but I would do anything to keep them safe. So you stay the hell away from the Doctor and Rose. And it's like, oh shit. And the fact that we don't get a resolution from Jackie in the episode makes that sit even longer.
Yeah. Because, like, what's it done to her? How much has that hurt her now?
She's now going to think everyone who's going to talk to her is, like, trying to find information out.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
It's really sad.
Camille is brilliant in that. And that is one of my talking points for this episode when people say, oh, come on, well, it's not that. Come on, it's awful. I'm like, watch the Jackie stuff, man. Holy crap.
I remember seeing
it's
that.
It's so good.
Watching that for the first time, and when she was stood outside,
just waiting for him to come back.
I felt my stomach drop. I was like,
it's that look of a disappointed teacher, like knowing you're coming into school late. It's like, oh
God,
oh dear. And then we rushed.
I was never late to school, so I wouldn't know.
Lucy used to live a 5-minute walk from her high school, and she would be late most days.
To the point where a teacher once asked if everything was okay at home, and I was like, yeah, I'm just really lazy. And I never grew out of it.
Then we dive back into finale as basically Elton confronts Victor Kennedy with his weird beard and the fact that Peter Kay is clearly 20 years too young to be playing the character they've designed. Had they, as stupid as it sounds, had they just made his facial hair and the wig and stuff just black or darker, it wouldn't be as weird, because you'd just be like, oh, weird, young, eccentric millionaire dude or whatever. Like, do you know what I mean? You just look at it as that.
Mm.
But it's
the fact that it's Peter Kay, and he's so recognisable.
And I think he's a good actor.
He's
a really good actor. And he's not bad in this, he's just in a completely different show to the first 20 minutes. Love and Monsters is brilliant up to the 20-minute mark, and that after that point, I think, is when it loses people. Let me know in the comments if you feel differently, but I think my theory is that it's one thing, and then it becomes a comic relief special.
Yeah.
Which drowns out the best stuff, which is the Jackie stuff. The fact that this group of people that would never normally even make a connection with another human being are now looking out for each other, and when they realise something's wrong, because they don't know that Bliss and Bridget are gone. Because
he says that Bliss has got married, and it was like, whoa, that's really random out of the blue.
But they don't question it because they've never really had these friendships before, so they're like, oh, okay.
And Bridget has found her daughter.
Well, they think she has, don't they? Because that's when they're leaving, and the bit where he says and Ursula, you're gonna come with me, and we're gonna go for a Chinese, and it'll be really nice. just the two of us, if you want.
Yeah.
You come with Mr. Skinner, not to the Chinese, between the two of us, but like leaving with us. It's like, yes, I am. Like, that's wonderful, because basically Elton's like, what we did to Jackie, that's horrible. This is not what Linda is about. Like, this is horrid. We're all getting out of here. And then another slight cock up there of the visual. Sorry about that.
It's just getting rude, this.
So they're leaving, but Mr. Skinner sticks around. And Ursula forgets her phone, so they go back. And that's where things take a turn for the... We're really doing this?
For the grim.
So the concept of the Absorbaloff is great. Like, it's a really great idea. It's the blob, essentially.
Yeah.
But the people inside it are still aware. They're dead. They're gone. They're never coming back.
Yeah.
But they're also still kind of alive for a bit. It's even made visually clear that that's the case when you see his shoulder and, like, next to where Bridget's face is, like, just over his shoulder, is another face that's kind of now... It looks like folds in his arm because it's gone. So... Who are these other people that he's absorbed since he got here?
Yeah.
And at what point does the brain stop functioning, or at least the face stops functioning, and is the brain still alive? Because we learn that the Absorbaloff, Victor Kennedy, is trying to find the Doctor because it wants the Doctor's brain.
Yeah.
It wants the Doctor's knowledge.
Yeah.
And it's aware of the TARDIS, so if it has that, it's going to then use the TARDIS. So this is a solo agent. This is a horrid alien baddie working on its own behalf. How many people has it absorbed since? And if it's going to retain the Doctor's knowledge, that implies that all the brains, all the minds of the people it's absorbed are still aware.
Oh, that's grim.
So that crumpled up face that can't talk is a person that is aware of what's happening right now. That's horrid, isn't it?
Yeah.
Bliss got absorbed and is on his bum, which is kind of a fun throwaway joke, actually.
Yeah.
Bridget was absorbed, Mr. Skinner's just been absorbed, and when Ursula goes to basically threaten it to release their friends, he absorbs Ursula as well.
Just grabs hold of her.
Linda is gone, and Elton has no one.
Oh.
So after a chase sequence where the Absorbaloff's going to kill him, because Ursula's smart enough to realise she can hear its thoughts if she concentrates.
Yeah.
Like, she knows it's... That's the one shot where it looks really freaky, and that's down to Peter Kay and the direction.
Yeah.
The bit where it just sort of he's going to get you, he's going to get you to run, and he just sort of looks up at him. It's like, oh, that's horrid! And then all the menace is gone because the next shots are really terrible. Fast forward running to make it look speedier than it is, instead of shooting it in a way that makes it look... You know what I mean? Like, there's ways to do it.
Yeah.
Like, have Elton leg it the hell out of there, turn around as he's leaving the building to see that it's already at the doorway. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Have him leg it, turn around, it's not there, turn back and have it, leap into frame from something. Do you know what I mean? They'll sort of hint that this thing is actually a lot quicker than you'd assume it, because, of course, it's a big guy. Like, it's a pot-bellied alien. Like, show that it's faster. Do what they do with the Sladine. Show that it can leg it. Well, it is, like the shape of the
No, it is.
Absorbaloff.
No, you're right. Just the way you went it was cute.
But, yeah, so it's... I think this is the stuff people piss themselves at. The fact that in the drawing, the illustration, it does have, a black area where its crotch is, so, pants or something. But because on the physical alien it has that, it looks like it's wearing underpants or has thick pubes. Now we've seen this costume
I'm a child.
in real life.
Yeah.
We went to the Doctor Who exhibit in 2007.
I remember it so
2008?
so clearly.
It was the one in the hallway. It was in the lobby.
A full stood up in its case. It was freaky.
Yeah. And I don't remember that looking like pubes, so bit weird, isn't it? But that's when the TARDIS arrives, after Elton basically says, yep, go on. He's going to allow the Absorbaloff to absorb him and kill him, because he's like, what have I got left?
Yeah.
It's horrid. It's really horrible, because that also really doubles down on how lonely Elton is. If this group was it, he obviously doesn't have anything else in his life, which just adds more poignancy to the first 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And that's when the TARDIS rocks up, because Jackie's obviously phoned Rose to say there's a bloke sniffing around, And I love that she comes out and she's like, "Oi, you've upset my mum." And Elton's like, "Dirty big alien, and you're annoyed at me." She's like, "No one upsets my mum." Which I love. And so we get the Doctor and Rose sort of for the second time, really, and it's... Yeah, the ending's weird. The ending is weird.
Very
I
weird.
like the idea that the Doctor figures out... I mean, you get the Raxacoricophalopatorius' twin planet being called Clom joke, but... you get. I like the idea that the Doctor's clicked that the people he's recently absorbed could do something about it. Like, they can't come back, but they could stop the absorbal off. And Ursula figures it out, and Linda united, work together and essentially pull, which causes the absorbal off a shitload of pain, which smashes his cane, which he's been holding onto the whole time, which contained essentially a gravity field. I guess that while it's on this planet, that's the thing that kept it in a solid form. So it just starts absorbing into the ground and keeps going.
Yeah, that's some...
That's freaky.
That's some ropey CGI right there.
I don't know, it's brief enough, I think, but I know what you mean. I don't remember it looking that odd at the time.
No.
But yeah, it's definitely aged a bit, that effect. So it keeps on sinking into the ground, and kudos to Mark Warren as Elton for the narration and the wraparound bits talking to his camcorder, because that really does lend so much weight to it all. It really does hammer home, like, the stuff that works. It's the bits in between him on the camera that stop working, let's be honest. Because we learn one poignant bit. We learn that the reason why the Doctor was in Elton's home as a kid is because there was this thing that had gotten loose. This, like, shadow thing that killed people. And it killed his mum. That's what woke Elton up. He'd heard the noises and he'd come downstairs.
And he recognised the sound of the TARDIS.
Yeah.
Which is kind of heartbreaking.
So that's really... It's sad, but again, it says a lot about Elton, that, like, he forgot that night. Like, he pushed it out of his head. The trauma pushed it out of his head. Why? That night is significant to him. That's bloody horrible. But then the Doctor finds a way to maybe make it not be a sad ending. Maybe because it sort of implies that after talking to Elton, he realises that, like, you know, he owes him one. So he... Do you mind? I'm trying to resonate concrete. So he uses the sonic to pick up on, like, the last sort of set of brainwaves, the last psyche or whatever that was absorbed into the Earth, like which was Ursula. Because that moment is freaky but not too cheesy when as the absorber being absorbed into the ground, the paving slab kind of moves for a moment and it's clearly Ursula and she says goodbye.
Yeah.
So he focuses on that, and then we get the notorious ending, wherein Ursula lives on. Sort of. Her consciousness lives on in the paving slab that has her face, which I have to hope was basically just a trial run for them creating the visual effects of the nodes in 2 series time, because otherwise, guys, come on. And she's alive. She's content. She's clearly in some sort of, like, state of permanent sort of chilledness. She's just stoned, basically. And you know, it's really quite peaceful, and you get this whole thing of like, oh, okay. And he makes a point of saying, like, you know, we get to be together. We make it work. And it's weird and odd, but it's not. It's like 7 out of 10 odd, but still kind of sweet. Until he then says we even have kind of a love life. She says, oh, let's not talk about that. And then suddenly it goes off the frickin' meter and goes up to, you know, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and the whole dial smashes. Because you're like, he shagged the paving slab. That's basically what they're saying. And I think it's the last 20 minutes tonally, and I think it's that gag that sour people's taste on this one.
Yeah. She's just a forehead, really.
I like Love and Monsters a lot. It is far from the best episode of the modern era, and it is far from the best episode of the series. It's far from the average of this series, but I don't think it deserves the shit it gets. How do you feel after revisiting it? Because you've never liked this one.
I was always a little bit...
This was, if you're box setting, this was one of the couple you'd skip this series.
Yeah. I was very meh with it. Oh, I friggin' hated it. I'm sorry. I did enjoy the Jackie bit, and you having told me about, a different perspective of
Do you kind of stick that whole thing of like the first
Elton's
that whole first
so,
20 minutes versus the rest of it is kind of a.
Yeah.
It's like if that first 20 minutes could exist and the Jackie bit could exist with a better wraparound for the last 25, I think people would hold it in higher regard.
Yeah, I mean, I really like the idea of an episode very, limited on Doctor.
Which will continue, and next year will deliver probably the best example of that.
Yeah, but I know it just tonally, it just wasn't great for me.
But Boo, you've dabbled with aliens. Now meet the one that sounds like Max from Phoenix Nights. Get back, you bastard! I'll break your legs. Eczema.
Jesus.
Guys, what do you think of the Idiot's Lantern, Impossible Planet, Satan Pit, and Love and Monsters? Be gentle. Let us know down in the comments. And brace yourselves for next time we meet here on this heath. We'll hopefully have less technical issues. And also, it'll be for the Series 2 finale. But first, we love Chloe Webber.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Bye.
Well, Monsters don't seem so bad now, does it?